our target lots. So what are we looking for? How do we find them? What's the process? So I just want to make sure that we are live right now. As you guys already figured out, this sometimes is a hit and miss. So if you can hear me, go ahead and say something or do something. Sometimes. All right, so everything looks like it's working. So I'm just going to jump into it. So at the end, if you have some questions, you can jump in with some questions, and I'll take those as well. So let's go ahead and get rid of that, and I'm just not seeing my camera tonight. So there's no camera, so you're not going to see me tonight, I guess. So, but everything else is working. The stuff I'm needing to look for is working. So let me just check. Yeah, I guess that's going to be fine. So what we'll do is jump into the training now on the locating the ideal lots and stuff, and what are you looking for and that type of thing. So first of all, we'll start out with, in a general sense, I like to look for big cities to start with, because you just are naturally going to have more buyers located in and around big cities than small out of the way places that are really, really far. We're talking about even if it's within a couple of hours, even 3 hours, it's still close enough if there's some reason to go there. For example, there might be a lake or something, so people in the bigger city to do a getaway for the weekend, they'll go out to the lake, and that could be pretty far from a big city. Not necessarily, but that's kind of my range that I'm looking for. But more importantly, what I'm looking for are I tend to stay out of the bigger cities because of all the regulations and the length of time that those lots have been there. Oftentimes create a problem for the lots itself. So you might have liens, and you might have regulations. They might have all kinds of issues. Now, not to say to leave them alone. Some of you do work in the bigger cities, and that's great. There's nothing about that you shouldn't be doing. I'm just telling you what I do. Now, if I were targeting builder lots, I might very well go into the bigger city and the suburbs, of course. But otherwise, I like country lots. So I'm dealing with the county regulations at that point. So I tend to appreciate that more. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an idea here that I look at. So I'm looking at all the surrounding counties of a big city, right? And so there'll be some number around there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little research on Google to find out where the most growth is happening. All right. So a lot of times cities and growth goes north. Sometimes it goes south. It depends on if there's a problem. It could be a border, it could be a lake, it could be a horrible land or something, and all the good land is to the south. In that case, big cities might go south, but they tend to go north primarily, south secondarily, and this obviously left and right. So what you do is you do some demographics, and you're looking for population growth per year in these counties. Once you determine that, it gives you an idea of where to start. Now, it doesn't mean that all of these areas won't work, because they all will work, but I'd rather have more buyers, knowing that more buyers are going to be there for me as I go into the surrounding counties. So that's the big idea first when I'm looking at counties. And again, there might be a lake, right, somewhere out here, and little subdivisions will be developed here, maybe there, who knows, all right? So anything on this side of the lake will have bigger demand than stuff where you have to drive all the way around the lake to get to. Keep that in mind. So these lots tend to be cheaper over here, more expensive over here. And so just, being aware of how populations move when they go to a lake. The other thing you'll find is a river. All right, so a river might flow through, and along this river there'll be developments as well, and they stagger. All right, so what I tend to do is I tend to find the river, right? So I'll find the river, and then I'll just use my map and guide down and look for little clumps of subdivisions, and that's how I locate those. And then when I find a river, I'm just going to keep going on that river. I'll take some rivers in Texas, for example, and I'll follow the entire river and mail out to those people with each subdivision I find. And sometimes the river invariably will end up at a lake someplace, and then that's even more population to choose from. Okay, so from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the land glide. All right, so I'm going to use Houston as my example. Again, it could be any big city, but I'll use this area since I'm more familiar with it. And some of you, you get the software that gives you a bunch of lists, and you try to go through there and filter down through the list that they have. And I'm going to tell you, I've looked at a lot of different software, and all of the software, they miss opportunities. All right, so if you're going to do that, and I'm not saying don't do it, even I use some software, and I've used several, and I'll probably keep changing as looking for the better software. So it's a never-ending search for software. But when you're starting out, I don't suggest that you use software. And I suggest that you stick with Land Glide to get your bearings in this business and get started. And I used the GIS system of my county when I first started out. They didn't have Land Glide back then when I started out. So I used my GIS. Now there's some counties that don't have a GIS system, so you can't use their system. All right, in the smaller counties and the less financially sound counties, they don't, they haven't invested in the GIS systems either, so they don't have them. But Land Glide tends to cover pretty much all the counties that you're going to probably be looking at. So it's another reason why Land Glide's, as you guys know, is $100 a year. So for the price, you just can't beat it. And I've had it for a year. I use it all the time. I use it all the time. So I found that it's indispensable to me. And so if you're in the business, you'll find it indispensable for you. And I use it even in my own county. So I have, I know where I'm going to mail out and all that stuff too. But it's so quick when I need to find out, well, who's this owner that lives next door to my property? And, so I might hit them up, or I might try to buy their property, or I might try to sell the property I have gotten under contract to them first, and that type of thing. And it's nice to be able to go knock a door and say, hello, Mr. Smith, I see that you own this property, and I own the property next door to you. And of course I'll say that even though I have a contract on it, because I don't want them to go back to possibly the original owner thinking they can buy it, so I'm going right up and letting them know I own the property. I bought it from so-and-so. I might even give them the name, because if they know the name, then they're going to say, okay, well, this guy really owns the property. All right, just some little extra hints there for you. And either they'll buy it or they know somebody wants to buy it. So that happens a lot, by the way. But you need to. So it's a good idea to do that if you're there locally. Now, some of you are doing remote, and I do remote. I don't go and look at anything, that's outside. I'll go in. I'll say anything. Well, actually, where I live, anything outside this little area right here, that's as far as I'm going to drive, right there. And I might go up here because it's still fairly close, but that's it right there. that little area. It's about 30 minutes drive. So if I have any property more than 30 minutes, I'm just doing it remotely. I'm going to do the whole thing remotely. I'll never even see the property. But when it's in my backyard, yes, I'm going to do that. So let's go through now. Let's say, for example, you guys know I work this area up in here, and I have for the last 6 years, and I'll continue working it. Your areas, once you establish yourself in an area, it's hard actually to run out of property, because no matter how good you think you've covered it, you haven't covered it. And that was the first lesson I learned the hard way, thinking, well, I've mailed everybody I could think of in my county in the first year. I thought, okay, it was over. Except every time I remailed, I kept getting more and more sales. And so it never goes away. Once you create a good list, it really never goes away. It's just a matter of time when these people decide, hey, I'm ready to sell. And we never know, what their reason is that they're going to sell, but there are reasons for selling. And so I don't try to predict that. Let me see if I can make this a little bit larger before I go on. H, still bottom logo. Display capture. Nope. Nope. Land glide demo. Nope. Display dark. Banner office. Logo still bottom third blur. See anything at this point, and I can't see anything other than the larger streets in Wharton. All right. So as you go in, you'll see the lots pop up. So what I'll do is I'll go in here, and then I'll just come off the city and start to kind of look around and see if I can see any development area. So this is a development off of that area. And so what I'll do is I'll turn on the satellite now and take a look and see what's in here. And of course, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a lot of lots gathered together in a subdivision, and I want to see if I've got some vacant lots in there. The quickest way to do that with this is to go back off into the map area, click your map, and now you can see the outline of the house. So here's, you can see on this Sweeney, you'll see the house outline there. And so we know that those lots have houses. So you can come back in just enough so that you can still see the houses. And one of the things I'll do to get rid of some of this wording is I'll go to label, and for just a second I'm going to turn off labels. That way I can see the houses much cleaner. So now I can see that's a vacant lot. Here's some vacant lots here. All right. So now once I kind of get an idea of where the vacants are that might be here. So I have some over here. I can go back in up here at the top right, the settings button, and I can go back into labels and turn the owner's name back on. But I only want the last name. So too much. And so it reduces the number of letters and words inside there, and it just gives you what's left. And so now I can take a look. Now I begin to see, what is the situation here. So in this situation, here's what looked like a vacant lot isn't, because this last name and this name are the same. All right. So that means this person who lives here, of course, owns that, and this would not be somebody I would mail to. Now, here's where the issue comes up when you grab a mailing list or the county tax roll and you try to get your list off of that. When you put that list in there and you sort out, this Silva lot is going to pop up as a vacant lot. And now you're mailing to somebody that's a complete waste of time and money. And so this is the advantage of really targeting your list to a good, and it's going to be a small list, and it's going to be an effective list. If you can get 50 good ones, not 50 bad ones that are mixed like this, you're going to do a lot better. And so as you get to know your areas and stuff, you'll just get better and better at this. So I've got 2 now. All right, so what I'm going to do now, that I'm just going to look at this, and see Silva also owns this other vacant. So now I'm just looking at these 2, and what I'm going to do is now go back to my satellite, turn it on, and I'm going to go back in there and look at these vacant lots and see if they're truly vacant, because sometimes a vacant, what looks like a vacant, isn't. Now, so here we already have an issue. There's a road going through this lot up to this house, and well, that belongs to them as well. So on these, it's not side by side, it's a person owns front and back. All right, now on this lot, all I see here is this little tiny barn. All right, so this is a vacant, or probably a vacant lot. It's a double lot, and so this would be somebody I would mail to. When you see something like this, it usually means the county owns it or something like that. So this would not be something I would mail to. Let's go back and look over here. We saw some others over here. And over here we see this harvest. Now, you do have to be careful when you're looking at these, because just because you see a road going through the property line, so we have a property line there and a property line there, doesn't mean that this map is exactly right. So probably in reality, this property line is actually right here, and everything is shifted a little bit south. That may be the case, it may not, but we can pretty much, we still have to go, we have to assume that at this point, because this looks vacant otherwise, and it's only this single name, Harvest, by its own name. And so this could become, this would be a valid lot I would put on my list and start mailing to. All right, and this going on down here, I see this is a little vacant lot right here from Baker, so that's another one that could go on the list, and that's it for right in there. So that's how you develop a great little list. Now I'm going to come back out here, and one of the things I saw with Wharton is that they have a river kind of running through the city there and on south. So that means that I want to look down into, I'll go back into map now, since I've got a river, and see what's on this river. All right, so in this case, this person owns all of these, and probably not a deal. I don't, and that's a Center Point, so that's an energy company. Now I'm looking for subdivisions along this river. And so now we get into a little subdivision here as well. Let's go in and see what kind of population. So we have Thomas, those are all taken. And now we have some possible vacant right there, and some right here, TWC properties, and this person here. So these all become possibilities. Again, we're going to test it by going back to satellite and taking a look at it. And what I really want to see is, I want to see something like this right here, where there's no house on it and it's brushed in. Tells me a lot. So we've got 1, 2, 3 right here in a row. Those become property to go on my list. And then I'm just going to go back up along this line. Thomas and Thomas, he owns both of those, so that's off. We've got a good possibility here, because let's see if there's any houses on it. This house, even though it goes across the line, it could be a house, it could be a truck, it could be almost anything. But this right here, he owns that right there, so that's where his houses are, and he owns the rest. That looks like a house on there. This is a vacant property right here without Garcia around, anywhere around it. So this becomes on my list as well. So let's say, for example, so let's talk about how you can now create a list from what we're looking at. Now, the fastest way And by the way, when you get your software, the more you can play with it and experiment with it and push it right to the limit, that's where you'll see everything that it can possibly do. So what I want to do now is show you, I guess this was an update they gave, because I don't remember it being that way, but I might have missed it totally. But it's got a really nice list service connected into it that allow you to target these into and collect them on a list. That way you're not having to open up down here and go in here and take all of the information out. As you guys know, I like people who don't live there, and almost by default these people don't live here, and especially if you're on a river, that type of thing, they're not living there either. But it doesn't matter, wherever they are, they're not living there, and so that becomes a valid property to hit. And then we get lucky when we get the out-of-state person, right? So that's the added benefit. But let me show you how I'm going to make a list out of these properties. What I'm going to do is I'll hit the settings button up here on the right, and I'm going to drop a pin right there on that one. All right, so now that one is there. I'm going to come back here. We had some blanks, and of course you're doing this as you go. I was giving you techniques to find them. Now I'm just showing you as you go. So as you're going around this map doing this thing, you can start to just drop a pin every time you find one. Now I won't double mail, so I'm not going to hit that one, the one next door. But now I've created my list. All right, now you can just sit here on the map, keep going and keep adding to your list. All right, so here's a bunch of vacant and locations. So this one right here, and when that opens up, it's going to show you all the parcels that you dropped the pin on. Now up here in the top right, you see this little upload or share button. That's really probably the inappropriate button for this, but it is the button you're going to hit. So we're going to hit that top button here, and it's going to bring this up. So now you can hit quick look or save to files. So if you do a save to files, that's going to actually take you in and allow you to download all these properties into a spreadsheet. So save to files will create your Excel file sheet that you can use in Excel, or the CSV file, which you can open with Google Sheets. But we're going to do a quick look just to show you what it looks like. And so as you can see, it's put all of it's got all the information, including the latitude, longitude here, so you can see exactly. On your list, you can actually go back and find it exactly by putting that into a Google Map search, and put these two, latitude and longitude, just as you see it. So there'll be the first number, it'll be a space. I usually put a comma in there, so it's a comma, then a space, and then I'll use the negative, in this case 96 point, and then I'll do the first 5 numbers. And that will, in an address bar in Google, that will take you right to this lot. So you can locate where they were very quickly in a Google map later on. All right, so now it's telling us the market values here, and it's telling you the size over here, telling you the kind of land coverage that it is. Now we have the mailing address and where these people are from, and a quick legal address as well. So this gives you everything you need to mail to this person, mainly this mailing address right here. So mailing address 1 in this case, and mailing address number 3 will give you the owner's address, and of course the owner's name is in this list as well. So this is a great way to create your list to mail out to. Okay, well that's pretty much most of what I wanted to cover with you, because this is the core of what it is you're going to be able to do and locate and create your list. All right, so let me go into questions. If you have a question, we're only showing this in the Land Mogul masterclass, so you can chime in and type whatever question you want. That's interesting. What does a river have to do with population growth? Well, I don't even know how to answer that, but what we're doing with a river is that it's like a lake. Wherever that lake is, if it's a drivable distance from a large city, you're going to have a population growth that goes there. However, a river, it will stream out and go for some distance, but what you'll find, in all practicality here, is you'll find large space along that river where there's nothing there, and so there's no population there, and so that's, obviously you won't find little subdivisions like we found along this river. And when you do, that again just becomes just like a lake lot. It's a desired lot that people from the city will want to buy, even if they don't plan on moving there full time. It's just a quick getaway. Now, by the way, on those river lots or lake lots, I'll pretty much buy any size lot if it's facing the water itself, even if it's smaller than what I like to go for, or smaller than what you can build on, for example, because people with an RV will go out there just for a day or overnight and enjoy it that way too. So almost anything that you can find on a river or waterfront becomes a good deal. Okay, Frank says he can no longer hear me. I'm hoping my audio is still working. It shows that it's working on my thing, so it might be on your side. And click to mail is who you use. John, yes, John, I use click to mail when I send out pretty much everything. The exception to click mail, because as I've built my list, anything where it's 50 or more, I just don't want to sit down and write names out. And I've never found that it affects me on my response rate either to just use click to mail, which is very business oriented looking mailer, because most people just don't get hit like the house people do. So it's not a big deal. You don't have to yellow page these people. In fact, my opinion, is better to use click to mail. It does make you look a little bit more professional. Thank you, Lorena, for letting me know my audio is working. Again, the only time I do a letter that's personal is when I'm targeting somebody. So let's say I've sold a property and these people are saying, hey, look, if you can get a hold of this lot or get me another lot in this area, I'm ready to buy that one too. And you're going to start to find people will say that to you. So that's when you kind of get motivated and say, okay, well, let me take a look around here and see if I can send some personal letters. So in that case, I will send a personal letter. And I wish I had my video on right now, because I'll show you my stationery that I use. But I'll take a snapshot and just stick it in here in the feed, because what I can do is show you, if I can get a photograph of it. I don't think I can. I'll have to do it afterwards. So just look in the comment section here, and I'll show you my, what my personal letter looks like. So what I did is, instead of just sending a letter or something with a letterhead, you can buy a writing pad that has really nice paper, really nice feel to it. So, and you can have that with your name put into in real nice looking font. So it's like something that you would receive from somebody that is definitely in business, because they have a personalized sheet of paper, and it's not the full 8x10. This looks to be about 6x8 or something. So it's a pad, but it's fine paper. The one I use that I found I like, because I got two of them when I picked this idea up. One have the lines already drawn for you, like writing paper, and I found that just makes your writing of the letter much more neat and professional looking. And the other thing that I do is when I use this writing paper, I use a fountain pen, the old-fashioned fountain pen. And I could show you mine. Some of you have seen this before, but I love writing with a fountain pen because the person receiving it can see, oh, okay, this is really written out nicely with a, it's like you want to convey that you've at a certain class, so obviously they're not going to question whether you've got the money to close on this deal. They're just going to take it for granted. Hey, you're in this business and you're writing a very nice letter, to me. And to me, that's 1,000 times more effective than a yellow letter. So it's this old style of communication that disappeared. And the people, and if you think about it, the people that primarily are our sellers, as you guys already know, most of them they're over 60 for sure. Oftentimes they're 70 and 80 years old, and you'll be talking to some people that are going to say, I'm 93 or I'm 94, and you're going, oh my God, and they're sharp as they're sharp as a tack even, so, but all of those people, they appreciate the old way of things that have now disappeared. So if you can write your letter with a fountain pen, it becomes obvious because the ink flows differently than a regular pen. You're going to have deep, dark lines that are, let me rephrase that. You're going to have wider parts of your lettering and thinner parts. You can't get that with a regular pen, but it shows up right away and people recognize it, especially in that generation. It's almost like a lost art, but it's not. You can do some YouTubing and find some fountain pens and even practice writing with a fountain pen. It's a little bit different than just regular writing. You can do either cursive or you can print. I owned a lot, 2 or 3 lots over, and I was wondering if you would be interested in selling. I buy lots in this area, and I'd love to get on the phone and talk to you. Whatever words you want to use, it's just going to work out for your personality. All right, let's see if we got any more questions. Hey, Jeff. Good to see you, buddy. Hey, Corey. Good to see you in here, too. Hey, Linwood. Thanks for sharing. Always learning an earful. Yes, thank you. Do you have, from Corey, do you have more examples of the different types of absentee owners? Example, code violation, oil leases, etc. No, I don't target any of those. I target vacant lots using this criteria that I just showed you. I don't go for all the other stuff. And not to say you can't, all right? That definitely is something that you can, you each can individually do whatever you want to, and that's how you find a niche that only you're working. So that's another great way of doing it. Are there states to avoid working remotely? Well, there's obviously some states that are heavily regulated and or have title problems. There's not a lot to really be aware of, but obviously California. Let's just get that one off the top real quick, and anything too close to something like New York or something like that would be more difficult to work in. Now, I wouldn't totally dismiss California. There's large areas of California that this works great in, but it's not going to be, on the coast, for example. Just if you go in there and use this map and start to try and find vacant lots, around LA, good luck. It's going to be really hard to do. Not to say it can't be done, though. So now you're working the idea of looking for city lots that are vacant, and we do have people doing that. Now you're looking for those kind of lots to sell to builders or developers. So that's the difference. Today, what I went over primarily was country lots. What to do, what I look for in country lots, and country lots always encompass anything on a river, anything on a lake, and anything really outside of the county of the big city. So immediately once you start looking for, or even a big size city, I don't even want to, say I look in any high populated city. I want to get out of that city. So I take a populated city of 2 200,000 or whatever, and I'm going to go outside that city now and look outside that area. I want to, as much as I can, I'm trying to stay in the county and not the city to keep away from those regulations. Michael says, I spoke to a guy last week who was 87 years old and had vacant land property since he was 23. Man, I tell you what, I talk to people like that all the time. They bought this property like a lifetime ago, and they're finally ready to sell, but they've been holding on to it for so long. And one of the common things I'll hear often is in the conversation is, well, I realize now I will never move back on there. So these people actually kept this land all this time, thinking, if things didn't work out here or whatever, I have a place to go back to. So that's typically why they've held on to it so long. The other reason, of course, is nobody's ever sent them a letter most of the time asking to buy it. And most of these can't get listed with real estate agents because there's not enough money for agents to even entertain wanting to list them. And the other issue is that people that age hate to deal with real estate agents. They already know they're a lot of trouble. By that time, they've bought and sold enough houses to realize they try to avoid agents as much as possible. John, one of my issues is finding a buyer. I spoke with an agent to get a jump on some builders. If I bought for $3,000, should I pay him something? You can work any kind of deal you want with an agent. If they're helping you, you'll have plenty of room to give people whatever you want out of your deal. So that's not ever an issue. What about wooded lots? So Lorena says, in a neighborhood not really developed. There's a lot of property that's not really developed, and they have wooded lots, and those can work out if the price supports it. So you have to really look and see how much activity has been in there. If there's no activity, those are usually kind of what I call dead subdivisions, and in general, they're not really what we're using this system to go after. But anything that you find that's vacant becomes a potential for putting a deal together, and a lot like that I would just pay a lot less for it. You're not in the 3,000 or higher area. You're in probably the 500 or less area in total what I call failed subdivisions. From Steve, are there areas that get marked so much that you recommend avoiding, like coastal areas or cities or states? Get marketed so much. I do try to stay away from something if I think there's just too much activity in there. I'm tending to not want to be in the competition. So again, I would consider that part of what I call being in the city, or being part of the big city. From Frank, 1960s lake development. Investor says 1,164 lots, about half built. He goes to the sheriff, sells them, buys them for $10, puts them with his realtor for like $3,500, and then sells them for whatever. Okay, so that's a good way of doing it as well. And by the way, you don't have to go to the sheriff's sale to buy them for $10. You can oftentimes buy them for less than a couple $100 from the old owners that understand they're never going to sell those lots. Now that goes back to that wooded lot we were talking about earlier, that I call like a failed subdivision. So this does happen a lot, and it happens everywhere. So you can also make money, and I do the same thing. I do go after those lots as well. So pretty much everything that's vacant can be sold. You just have to make sure that you're not overpaying. And some of you guys the first mistake you learn is not to overpay. It was the first mistake I learned. I was overpaying by about $3,000 or $4,000, when I first started this, because I'm thinking these sellers are not going to sell, at this ridiculously low price. And then very quickly I found out, yes, they would. And they do it all day long, and they've been doing it for all 6 years that I've been doing it. In fact, they've really done it forever. I started buying lots in 1982 and bought even my very first lot at a ridiculously low price. So the opportunities are there. This is a great little system that I've taught you tonight on how to use that land glide to go after and find what I call a quality list. Again, be careful about these big list source. First of all, most of these list companies miss so many of the vacant lots that are there. They're just not on their list. I've looked. I've pulled up my subdivisions, compared it, and found out that some of these, I think list source is one of the worst, by the way. It left off just hundreds, if not thousands, of lots that should have been on there, but they weren't for whatever reason. Some of the other better list companies that what they do is they go to the county every year and buy the list. And so when they get the list, they're, whatever the process is, I don't know what the process is, but they're dropping the ball. And the last one I looked at had about, well, actually the one I'm using actually will lose about a third of the lots that they should be on there, but they're not. So that gives you an idea of how many lots are missing. Now, knowing that, and knowing you can find them with Land Glide, tells you right away that you're going to be mailing to people that have never gotten a letter from anybody. Zero. So that's one of the benefits of using Land Glide to go out there and find your list. I wish I got a commission off Land Glide, but